Hello, everyone. My name is Sam Schaefer with the Poultry Science Association. Thank you for tuning in to this month's episode of Let's Squawk About It. Our guest is Deana Jones from the Egg Safety and Quality Research Unit of the U.S. National Poultry Research Center within the USDA's Agricultural Research Service. We will be discussing egg storage safety, and then we'll settle some egg myths. So, Deana, thanks for joining me on this call. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your area of expertise?
Thank you, Sam. And this work from home edition of this, which is not the same as being in your professional setting, but I am with the Agricultural Research Service, which is a division of an agency within the U.S. Department of Agriculture. We are the unbiased research arm of the federal government. So we conduct research primarily with an agricultural focus to help not only all of our stakeholders, which are regulatory, but consumers and also through academia. So I'm happy to be here. My area of expertise is egg safety and quality. I do everything from looking at food safety aspects, from the housing and rearing conditions of laying hens, all the way through product quality, food formulations, and functionality associated with eggs.
Let's dive into some questions. First question we've got is eggs are a major source of food for people all across the world, and many people like to buy in bulk these days, especially with everything that's going on with staying at home, which can result in a surplus of eggs for some consumers. In these instances, what can you say about egg safety with regards to storage, shelf life, and overall egg quality?
Awesome. Very good question, Sam. And actually, our research group has published several papers, many of which are in the Journal of Poultry Science, associated with egg storage and what happens with the egg while we're storing it. And I'm actually going to touch on not only the food safety aspects you asked about, but I'm going to mention some quality aspects also. Because with eggs, when we get ready to use them, it is a lot about quality and how that impacts the purpose and the use that we're going to do them with. So they kind of go hand in hand. But looking from the food safety, we've seen that, as is the case for the United States and several other countries, eggs are washed before they are packaged. Washed eggs, when stored in refrigerated temperatures, which is a law in the United States, eggs have to be stored post-processing at 7.2 degrees Celsius or 45 degrees Fahrenheit, according to guidance that actually falls under the Food Safety Inspection Service of the USDA. So when we have washed eggs and we store them appropriately at refrigerated temperatures, we have very high quality microbial characteristics through at least 6 weeks of storage post-processing. And that's going to take us to almost 45 days. So people should understand that if you have them at home and are properly storing them in your refrigerator, then they're going to last for an extended period of time, which will sometimes eggs, depending on where you live in the United States and where you're purchasing your eggs, they may have a sell by, used by, best by date. That could be 30 days. Sometimes it's going to be 45 days post-processing. And you can tell that by looking at the Julian date on the end of your carton, which is a 3-digit code that corresponds to the day of the year that goes from 1 to 365. And that will let you know what day your eggs were processed on. So you'll have at least through 6 weeks. Now, we've done storage studies looking at quality. And when we look at quality characteristics, we can hold eggs at refrigerated temperatures through 15 weeks of storage and still have grade A quality eggs at the end of that period. So the micro studies have not necessarily lasted as long as the quality studies, and we're looking at extending some of that. So I'm not giving you the saying that the micro ends, but the quality is still the same. I'm just saying that's what the data is we have to track through right now.
Very good insight, good thing for people to know and understand. Next, I thought it would be fun to kind of crack some egg myths. So these are just some questions that I've seen, I've come across, and I've heard other people talk about that I thought it might be good to kind of like crack and squash.
Okay.
So eggs, cholesterol, and heart disease. Is there any correlation or health concerns with cholesterol and egg consumption?
Well, that's, of course, something that you need to discuss with your care physicians, primary care physicians, or your cardiovascular physicians if you're in that category. And obviously, it's an individual basis. But we have seen for times back in the 80s, eggs were very much put as, there's the famous Time magazine cover that had the frowny face that had 2 fried eggs for the eyes and bacon for the mouth, and it was all about cholesterol and was, hammering home a lot on the breakfast items of bacon and eggs. That time we assumed that a large egg had about 215 milligrams of cholesterol per egg. Since that time, we've had updates. Number one, we have different genetics, we have different ways that we're feeding birds. We have different methods that we're rearing and producing eggs. And so this whole thing comes into play that they repeated and redid, and they do this periodically anyway, looking at our standards of identity and what our nutrient contents of food are. And they redid eggs back in the early to mid 2000s and found that the cholesterol content now is actually around 185 milligrams of cholesterol per egg. So we do know that through whatever changes we've had between feeding, production, genetics, etc., we have an overall result of a lower level of cholesterol in the yolk, because that is where cholesterol is located, than what we saw previously back in the 1980s. We also have had some updates where they've and this is more for looking into the medical journals, but they've come back and said that it depends on the types of fats you're eating and your total profile, and that eggs can indeed fit into a very healthy lifestyle. The Egg Nutrition Center within the United States maintains all this information, has a plethora of data and facts and everything for consumers and users that they can go find on this very topic and many other nutrient topics associated with eggs.
Awesome. Well, it's interesting to hear that, the amount of cholesterol has gone down and due to the various reasons you mentioned, but ultimately it sounds like, consult with your doctor about this kind of thing.
Correct. Anything
Mhm.
medical, you need to always, make sure that you check with the people who are helping you keep yourself healthy.
All right, next question also kind of goes with health and it involves egg whites. Are egg whites a better choice for someone trying to eat healthier? And if we are trying to define healthier, let's say weight loss?
That all depends on what it is you're looking into. And of course, if you're under professional care, this is another time you need to talk with them. But it depends on the type of diet and also how your body responds to things. If you're wanting to have a higher protein, lower fat diet per se, then eating the albumin or the egg white is definitely going to assist you with that because it is a fat-free component of the egg. The primary source of fat in the egg is in the yolk. But there's also a lot of nutrient density found in the yolk of vitamins and minerals and other aspects that are not located in the albumin or the egg white. So there's a balance between those two of which way you need to go. So and it also has some personal preference. There's people who prefer having egg whites and having the yolk. It just depends on where you're going and how you're going about it. There's also egg products available so that if you are someone who has decided that you need a predominance of egg albumin in your diet, in the refrigerated section in the United States and the grocery stores, you can get small cartons of pasteurized liquid albumin or egg white, which you can utilize and not necessarily have to crack and feel like you're throwing away the yolks if you're not doing them. So that is available for you if that's something that is a preference for you or your family.
And I've definitely been a buyer of that egg white product because sitting there and separating the egg yolks and the egg whites is tiresome.
Well, I will give you just from a functionality standpoint as a little caveat. Those are a fabulous product, and we in the United States actually have the luxury of having egg products available for consumers because originally that started off as a food service, food manufacturing industry. But we do have it readily available for us in refrigerated and frozen sections in our retail setting. But if you do buy the pasteurized albumin or egg white product, understand that that pasteurization process that product has gone through has impeded the whipping capacity of that. So you're not going to be able to make an angel food cake with it, such as if you were using fresh eggs. But for doing something like a scramble or an omelet, or if you're wanting to put it into a muffin mix where you're wanting to do a fat-free muffin mix, it'll work perfectly fine and all that.
No, that's very interesting. I've only ever used it for like a scramble purpose, and I never thought about, making meringue with it, but it
Mhm.
would be interesting to see that it's just liquid the whole time.
Well, it'll foam some, but it doesn't have that foaming capacity that's naturally occurring in
Mhm.
fresh albumin. We do have pasteurized product that will foam wonderfully like that, but it is a specialized pasteurization that is not usually found in a consumer product.
Very insightful.
Mhm.
Next question involves organic cage-free and standard eggs. Is there really a nutritional difference to take note of here? And I would think no, but I will let you answer the question.
Well, officially, when we look at the nutrient database, which is utilized for creating all of our food labels, There has not been found scientifically a need to alter and have different nutrient database values based on housing systems or management systems at this time. We do have, so therefore, an egg that comes from organic is going to have the same nutrient label in the United States as if it came from conventional production or if it came from free range or cage free. They're all going to have exactly the same nutrient density on the label based on the scientific monitoring of those products. We do have eggs that have nutrient claims on them. Perhaps they're going to say they have a higher level of lutein, or they're going to say that they have a higher level of a particular vitamin or mineral complex, or perhaps that they have lower levels of certain fatty acids. Those are achieved through often proprietary feeding regimens that those hens go through. And for those eggs, they have had to petition and show that they do have that nutrient change, and therefore they get to have a different nutrient label on those. But that's because they've gone through a scientific process and has been validated to ensure that those eggs are indeed providing consumers what's labeled on the carton.
Also very insightful. Well, Deana, thanks for joining me today and having this conversation about eggs. It's been fun to kind of take a turn from what we've been talking about in this series so far, which is pretty much been focused on COVID-19. So it's nice to kind of take a turn and talk about something else a little bit different.
I was going to say there's a lot of resources out there because we do know that one of the things we've seen, at least here in the United States, as we've been going through the pandemic response, is we have a lot of people who are at home and reconnecting with cooking, which is great. And as such, we've had a lot of eggs that have been utilized and consumed. And there are many resources available if you're looking for handy hints on the next way you can go or the next product or food you might want to try or use with eggs. The American Egg Board's website here in the United States has a lot of information available, including some recipes and some guidance to help you perhaps explore some new ways to utilize eggs in your daily life. So keep that in mind, and so you don't get an egg rut. We don't want anybody to get an egg rut. We want people to keep eating and using eggs. They're awesome. They're nutrient dense food, it's fabulous, affordable nutrient dense food.
Perfect. Thank you for mentioning those resources, Deana. We have linked those in the description of this video as a reference for you all to check out. For PSA, I'm Sam Schaefer.